Episodes are special as always, but today was different because after catching up for 45 minutes with a dear friend of mine who I spoke after 7 years, we dove deep into something incredibly valuable for all designers and architects out there: building information modeling, short form BIM. Joining us from New Zealand, where he's absolutely killing it in the world of BIM, is my dear friend, a coordinator who's mastered a dozen of BIM softwares and is here to share his expertise and experience. What makes this episode even more exciting is that he's not just talking about his journey, but making us an exclusive behind the scenes demo of his exclusive work on screen. So, if you're curious about BIM, looking to upskill, or just want to understand how the game changing software works, this one's for you. Let's get into it. Chinmay, you're a BIM coordinator in New Zealand, and you're going to tell us a lot of about what's going on there. And we have this, Nara here. BIM is booming, but you're going to tell us the actual story of what is BIM and how is it going to, help the industry. So, welcome to my podcast, The Serial Designer.
Thanks, Devanshi. It's so good to be here, and hello to everyone. I'm Chinmay Gathoo, and I'm just working as a BIM coordinator here in New Zealand. The journey of for me it started back in 2012 when I started architecture along with Devanshi. We both were classmates back in
Yes.
College of Architecture, and both of us we graduated in 2017. Um, in 2019, that's when I'd moved to New Zealand. I'd done a Revit certification back in India during the days of architecture, and just grabbed some local experience, and started working in the construction sector with the whole BIM knowledge of things. And currently, I'm working as a BIM coordinator with Naylor Love Construction, and and I'm just so happy to be on this podcast. There's so much for me to share. Talking of level of developments, talking of BIM execution plans, talking of the whole experience that I would just like to share of Revit and BIM itself. So let's get started.
How
Yeah.
is it different for you than architecture? Like, has your degree helped you go through it? How is it like?
Um, just want to acknowledge first. That's a good question of people just trying to say that hey, BIM is booming, but what is really BIM over here that
Yeah.
we are talking about? So, um, BIM firstly stands for Building Information Modeling. That's BIM. And generally, like people associate BIM with just Revit. Like Revit is the BIM software,
Correct.
but it's not necessarily Revit. Okay, it's a whole a bunch of softwares. It's a process that is taking into account various things. It's you could say 2D drawings, 3D model, um, yeah, and it's just not about one software. It's about so many softwares out there. You got Trimble Connect, which is another software. You got AutoCAD as well. That's a software that helps the
Yes,
process of
yes.
BIM. Revit is there itself. You got Naviswork Manage. You got Revisto. You got Fuser. You got iConstruct, which is a plugin for Navisworks Manage. So yeah, there are so many softwares out there, and these softwares kind of help you on a day-to-day basis. It helps a project in the day-to-day basis, so it kind of really depends on how the project evolves or what is its preference. Then we've come across drawings, like as you can see in this circular diagram which is on the left. We've got 2D drawings which are like CAD oriented drawings majoritively, or just drawings which are submitted from which come from consultants. They come from architects, they come from services consultants, they come from structural consultants, and they get distributed to builders and your clients or project managers. So what this does is what BIM does is, rather than having these 2D drawings which are in this whole aspect of which is the latest revision, is the 2D drawing actually showing the latest site information or not, we've got BIM incorporated common data environments, which is one single platform that you've got. So it's that single platform where everyone, an engineer, an architect, a subcontractor, a contractor, structural engineer, even a construction manager, project manager, they can go ahead and access that piece of information. So yeah, that's generally where we got everyone just going into that one source of information, that one platform. What happens is generally we've got contractors who update their model every single day, or maybe we've got designers who may be updating their model. Let's say a structural designer, maybe he must be editing a model, and because of which there is a certain change which needs to be sent out to different disciplines. Let's say architecture, services. You got firefighting, fire protection services.
Yeah.
They've got an updated model over here. So it's a common platform that we've got, which is basically used to share all this information. And what also happens is one of the key aspect is we do in the whole BIM coordination process, we do 3D coordination. Now the 3D coordination is for whenever we got clash detection, whenever we got, let's say, a pipe which is passing through straight through a beam. It's a
Hmm.
clash. If you see a cable tray passing straight through a beam, it's a clash. And if in case it's a clash on the model, as you see over here, it's going to be a physical clash on site tomorrow. So it could lead to a lot of issues on site. So what we try to do is we try to mitigate these issues earlier on the design stage itself, so that once we got a 3D model on site, all those issues are resolved. And finally, even one more little thing is based, as I'm from the construction side of things, as a construction BIM
Okay.
coordinator, one of the important aspect is trying to incorporate, the site information into the model. So that includes 3D point cloud scanning information. So that reflects onto the model, and then it can be captured into as-built information as well. So yeah, I just thought maybe, at the start itself, I could give you a little bit of a brief of what I do. I know it's
Yeah.
probably a lot. So yeah,
No, in fact, people, there's a weird cloud around this.
yeah,
That people relate it only to Revit. They just do
yeah,
probably a Revit course. They're like, probably ye karke we'll just probably, become like BIM experts. But it's something very, very different.
necessary.
You actually need
Yeah,
hardcore architectural knowledge backed before you even go to
absolutely.
something like this.
Yep,
Like
yep, yep,
we don't really imagine. Like people just constantly, as you rightly said, BIM is booming. But what exactly is BIM? That
yeah,
is missing.
yeah,
The piece of
yeah,
information which is very basic sometimes is missed out. Also,
exactly.
like you're practicing there in New Zealand. How do
Yeah,
you think? Because you were in India, you knew a
hmm,
certain norms, guidelines, regulations here. Uh,
yeah.
is it different there? How if you had to compare the two, the
Um,
practice?
Yeah, in terms of practice, honestly, I think I've seen slightly less amount of practice of like specifically like BIM in general, like even I would say use of Revit softwares.
Yeah.
I've seen it slightly lesser, at least in the projects which I had worked. But I do
Mhm.
know of companies which are very much looking forward to incorporating BIM in their
Yes.
day-to-day plans, like in India itself. I've also heard of large scale projects, they do incorporate BIM, but it's also
Hmm.
not a bad idea for medium and small size projects to start incorporating them, in my opinion. There is a lot of benefits to having, let's say, issues tackled at a very early point of the project.
True.
um, there is a lot of benefit to actually knowing the exact amount of quantities of concrete you're going to get on the project, like volumes of concrete, or areas of wall. If you have all that information readily available, I think it's just a win-win for everyone. So I
Hmm.
would definitely encourage use of BIM a bit more, towards the industry in India.
Okay. Is BIM, it's a cloud-based software. So
Yeah,
does BIM have its own storage solution, or does it, rely on, the company server or something of that sort?
that's a good question as well.
Yeah.
So what it is that we've got something called as Autodesk Construction Cloud. Okay,
Okay.
that's one of the construction clouds, which is, once you've got all the models set up, you can
Hmm.
create a project on a cloud platform. And once you've created a project, you can share. all your models into the project in a very
Hmm.
specific structured manner.
Hmm.
So let's say if I am an architect and I want to share piece of information of, let's say, the 3D model of all the walls,
Hmm.
I can definitely upload it and share it to a structural designer who can then start designing all the columns, all the beams, um, yeah, and all the other aspects of the project. Let's say if he wants to design a concrete floor with all the openings and all the penetration openings for the services, which also would be another share that needs to be done. That is, let's say, architecture and structure model needs to be now shared to the services designer.
Hmm.
So all
Hmm.
that information can be stored into the cloud, into the Autodesk Construction Cloud. But
Right.
also, in every depends on the common data environment the project would like to use. You also have an option of going to Trimble Connect. That's another platform, and you also have the option to use Revisto, which is again another platform, to do all these coordinations, to share models, and to have everyone on the same platform. Whole idea of a BIM execution plan, its short form is BEP. It's to incorporate the whole BIM aspect into the project, right from the designing stage to construction, um, to handover and as-built documentation to maintenance. So all of these phases are all captured in this BIM execution plan. Now, just to give a little bit of a brief idea of the BIM execution plan, there are different templates which are available online, and one can obviously Google some of these templates to use on the project. The whole idea is to define the goal, in terms of documentation, in terms of responsibility, outlining people's expectations from on the project in terms of BIM. It defines the scope of work quite clearly for different people. So what a designer needs to do, what a contractor and a subcontractor needs, what they need to do, and essentially what needs to be handed over. um, it also defines something like a clash matrix. Like, I think I'll be talking ahead in the video of what clashes are. But yeah, just trying to define some of these matrix of different objects clashing together, what clearance it needs to have, and finally it defines project information. Now, when I say project information, what does that include? It includes survey point, base point, and grids and levels, I should say. So how these grids and levels are defined generally is the architecture team who defines it, but this document at least pinpoints to where exactly the correct information of these grids and these levels could be found. So yeah, this it's quite a critical document, and I think it's very important for a project to determine a BIM execution plan, to have a plan in place, before they start its life cycle. So yeah.
And you mentioned about life cycle as well.
Yeah.
So, what is a project life cycle?
The project life cycle is, yeah, pretty much from like the designing part of the project. Firstly, understanding what is the need of a project. Why is that project needed? A project brief, determining that. After the project brief is determining, then pushing it into a concept stage, then pushing it
Hmm.
into a detailed design stage, then pushing it into a manufacturing and construction phase, and essentially as built and handover. So
Hmm.
these are a different project life cycles, Devanshi,
So
and I'll
it's
be
a
talking.
basically a design process. Yeah.
It's a yes, and I'll be talking of the level of development or the level of detail a bit more ahead in the video. We'll come to that.
At what stage in a design process does BIM come into action? Like, say, design could be maybe done on paper, and then probably it will be shifted to AutoCAD drawings, and then we do working drawings. See, that's how we do in
Yeah,
India.
yeah.
What about New Zealand? Like, when does BIM come into play? At what stage of design?
So I might share my screen again for this,
Yeah.
just to demonstrate this example. This particular image, it's not been produced by me. It's someone. It's a different source of or of the person who created. His name is Oliver, and I've just put his credentials of here as well. It's probably worth reading his article,
Mm.
Devanshi. I'll probably share it with you, and you can probably put it onto the
Yes, you
YouTube
could share
channel.
a link. Yes,
Yep.
yes.
So we've got different level of developments, I would say. In short, it's called LOD levels. First is the whole concept idea of, just the whole conceptual design phasing and design massing, which could be, it's more onto a designer of how comfortable he is. Maybe it could be a piece of paper that he could start that, conceptualizing, producing information, or he could actually do it on 3D itself, on Revit, or maybe SketchUp, on all these softwares, and eventually or get it onto the BIM platform, maybe into a Revit side of things. So once he starts conceptualizing and starts defining the geometry, that's when it goes into a LOD 200 of a schematic design phase, as you can see it on my screen, where you start getting the materials, you start getting the proper measurements, or you start getting the quantities, you start making these coordinations and clash resolutions. So that comes into the whole LOD 200 aspect of it. And I would really say, like, LOD 200 is when you're trying to get the design developed. That's the whole
Yeah.
detailed design phase that's coming in. Um,
Yeah.
Now, what happens is from LOD 200 to make it into LOD 300, that's when you start adding basically more information, like accurate sizes, shapes, positions, your 3D geometry being more accurate. Orientation should be correct. Connections should be nicely joined to each other. And in New Zealand, what happens is, this is where slowly the design model starts getting converted or gets transferred into a construction model. And this is
Okay.
when subcontractors try to jump in and try to add in their, as per the market, what are the sizes of cable tray available? What are the sizes of pipes available? What are the sizes of slopes that is required? Is the orientation or positioning correct as per the construction requirement? So there's a lot of construction input that suddenly comes into, you could say, LOD 350 and
Okay.
into LOD 400. That's when it's fabrication level of development, I would say. This is
Fair.
when, yeah, this is when it's like absolutely ready to build, construct,
Hmm.
fabricate, build it on site. Let's put it together on site.
Hmm.
That's what happens on LOD 400. And
Hmm.
you can see there's a fifth phase also over there called LOD
Yeah.
500. That is where we try to, as I showed you on the previous image, the point cloud capture, we try to get in the survey information. That is through point cloud capture, or maybe, we've got total stations or like DWG information that comes from site, and we verify that information that is built exactly the same spot or not.
Okay.
So these are the different phases, and I would say all these phases can be incorporated into Revit, um, into the whole Revit project.
Hmm. So
Yeah.
that's actually a very good, level of detail, but they're categorized. So as you said,
Yes.
this software is really structured. Most of the
Yes.
softwares which you named, most of these
Yeah.
softwares have the same structure. This is what you mean. This works on this
Yes.
principle of level of detail principle. All right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I
Devanshi, I would
think,
also like to add one more little thing of
yeah,
Revit, because we are talking of that platform
yeah,
quite extensively over here. Is People at times get confused between, Revit project and Revit families. Like
yes,
Revit
yes.
families is something different, and Revit projects are also something different.
Okay.
If you open a Revit project, as per, let's say, metric or imperial units, however it's preferred in the country. In New Zealand, we use metric quite a bit, so everything is in meters and millimeters. um, so um, we've got families which are system based families, which are inbuilt into the project. But Revit families is loadable families, like, say, you've got doors, you've got handles, if you've got windows, that
Yeah,
becomes a
we've
Revit
got different
family.
components. Yes, yes.
Exactly. So it is fair to say, it is fair to say that every Revit project is basically a Revit families put together in a certain piece, and which is presented to everyone. So I think that's one of
Hmm.
the best ways I could try and explain that, what's the main difference between these two types. Like, Revit family is totally different, but Revit project is also totally different. But like, once you place all these little items together, these Revit families, it creates a project.
All right. I think that's very well put because that's often confused. Okay, you
Yes.
download the software and
Yep.
then probably you're like, there's nothing here, like what could have been done. And then
Yeah,
there are
yeah, yeah.
different families, again, different countries, and uh, will have their own different system of families, measurements. So I
Yeah,
think interface also, interface wise, now that we are
yeah.
talking about Revit, what do you think, for BIM, which software is recommended by you personally? Because you named quite a few softwares, but
Yeah.
we've heard of Revit only. You named quite a few. So any other software which also could be used for the same thing?
I would firstly suggest the AEC collection. Now, when I say AEC, that's the Architecture, Engineering, Construction Suite. It's a suite of softwares.
Okay.
It
Okay.
comprises of Autodesk, AutoCAD. We've got Civil 3D. We've got Revit. We've got Naviswork. So these are the softwares which come in that suite of I think I just quickly checked the latest prices in India as well of these softwares. I think it's between 1 or 2 lakhs
Hmm.
per year. Um,
Hmm.
and then the other softwares which I would generally, just encourage some of the teams to use as well is Trimble Connect. That's just another software. I can actually just quickly share my screen and show you the quick experience I've got
Yes.
of Trimble Connect. Okay, so this is just one of the projects which I'm again working on. You can see I've got a structural steel model, and you can see the
Hmm.
amount of detail, the LOD level of detail that the fabricator has put into this. So you can see like literally the nuts and bolts and the nitty-gritty of these design. And what you see over here is point cloud information. So point cloud getting captured. So this is all the site verified information which I'm getting, and I'm just going to run my checks based on the information I've been getting on from site, and as well as the design information which I've got here. So this platform is called Trimble Connect. That's another platform which one could use. I'll just quickly show you Revisto as well, which is used quite a bit in terms of coordination. This is Revisto platform. This is a test project which we've got. And if I just try to show you like some of the benefits as well, if I just go transparency, I could pretty much control the view how I need. I can cut in sections as well, like this, and it's pretty smooth as you can see in
Hmm.
terms of like trying to integrate the different models together. I've got a structure, architecture, and services model over here which is integrated into it. So that's another software which I would really encourage people to jump into, try to develop their expertise in.
Hmm.
So yeah, as you can see, like there are quite a few suites of software, as well as we've got Synchro 4D, which is another software which tries to get incorporate the program, basically the construction phasing program
Hmm.
into the BIM models, which is the fourth dimension, they say. So that's another software which is used as well.
A lot of
Yeah,
like a lot of good softwares, I must say that. But what happens is, as an aspiring student, so most of our viewers are aspiring students, and they are yet planning as to what should they do after their degree. Do
yeah.
you recommend to just start learning these softwares? When did you start learning those softwares?
So one advice which I would really encourage, especially because I've come from the whole Indian architecture background as well, um,
Hmm.
is that keep exploring, keep learning new things.
Hmm.
It could be something you decide on, going the whole software background and try to learn these different softwares which could be helpful. But you can also try to get improvise your construction knowledge of things as well, of trying to work with some of the contractors on site, try to work with some of the carpenters on site, and you
Hmm.
can grow that knowledge as well. So it's kind of like developing your software skills, but also it's developing your knowledge of whole construction. Try getting
Hmm.
in internships early, try getting into the actual get your hands basically dirty of just try to go on sites, try to
Yes.
try to basically start building things yourself. That's when you will know of these details, yeah, basically of all the construction knowledge.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
can
because
share one little
architecture.
experience.
Uh-huh.
uh,
Yes, please share us a good
I
story.
can share one experiences. When
Yes.
I'd come here in 2019 in New Zealand, I was also
Yes.
working as a scaffolder back here, so I could actually get some on-site construction knowledge of things. So yeah, it was a part-time which I'd done, and yeah, it just helped me connect.
But I mean, humble beginning, as you said, like because you are
Yeah,
shifting to another country altogether, and
yeah,
yeah, as a scaffolding person, or maybe you just like a hands-on,
Yeah.
some
Tradie.
maintenance of tools or anything. It could be anything. But I
Yeah.
think it one should just go for it, take it,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, you will learn. And I'm
For
sure
sure.
these softwares, most of them were not even included in our curriculum. Like
Nah,
here
it's not.
in Indian,
Yeah.
it was quite theory. All
Yeah.
is
It
it that
was
what you've learned, on practice, and you've learned along with your practice when you were in New Zealand. So I
for
think
sure.
everything is not covered in the syllabus, as we all know,
Nah, for
but
sure.
it
It's not.
should be, included. It's a journey of self development, I guess.
It is for
That's
sure. And
yeah.
there's just like one more advice, I would really like to give, one or two quick ones is, often what happens is we are into that whole process of doing, let's say, an architecture design, but you're doing it by
Hmm,
yourself for a project
hmm,
which is,
hmm,
probably not going to be built. But in reality, a project is not just a one person game. It's so
yeah,
many parties involved. There are so many people involved into it. So
hmm,
think of it in this way: how can I collaborate better? How can I
hmm,
develop my skills in such a way that I can share this information with everyone else? I can share this piece of information with another, um, any other specialist, let's say a structural designer. How can I share
yes,
my architectural information with a services designer, and he can start incorporating his pipes, his cable trays, his mechanical ducts. So think of it from that aspect as well. Often what happens is, we do हम लोग AD करते हैं, we just, like we decide on doing architecture design, which is like one subject, and we try to build a project which is, yeah, which is from our own mindset, consulting
right.
our faculty. um, so yeah, it just happens that we are just so much self taught into that one process that we do not take more input. But I'm just trying to
Hmm,
encourage people to start sharing their thoughts, start sharing their design. How can they be a bit more collaborative? How can they, the whole idea is, how can the design see the light of the day? How can that design
hmm,
be built? Because finally
yeah.
it's people who are going to come together and build that project. So yeah, that's one advice which I would really like to share. And final one is
Yeah.
Strujan. When Strujan said, pens down, that means, yeah, just keep your pens down. Once you've made a design, once you've built, once it's issued for construction, do not change it.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's very crucial. And in our practice,
Yeah,
Indians are precisely, I would say, we do a lot of changes. We
yeah,
go through a lot of revisions. And
yeah,
this is what happens. That's what maybe brings the project, to a delay. But yeah, I
yeah,
think firm decision making could, help the
for
project.
sure, for sure.
Yeah.
That's what I would really like to encourage. Like, once something is already been designed, once something is already ready for construction, I would really encourage not to make changes, unless it's absolutely necessary for a project, or unless the site conditions are such that you need to make some changes. Then pick up the pens again. But really,
Yeah.
once you've issued something for construction, once you've issued something for building purposes, do not change it. That's what I would
Mm.
really encourage, people, and as well as, our future, building practitioners out there. Yeah.
Any innovation that you feel is going to come up, and because the field is constantly innovating, like right now as we speak, maybe some software is getting upgraded already. It's a very fast moving industry. So
Yeah.
any innovation that you are looking forward to and which you know of?
So as far as I know, BIM, in terms of automation, I would say we are definitely having workflows which are already incorporating automations. Like for instance, the clash which I just showed a few minutes before,
Yes,
on
yes,
Revisto. This is all, it could be automated, so you can start getting all these clash detections. Just to explain, Devanshi, clash detection over here. Clash detection is basically one object clashing with another object.
hmm,
It's like, let's say we've got a beam over here and we've got a pipe just passing straight through it. That's a clash. At times, um, because in New Zealand we've got seismic activity, so quite a bit. It's on the ring of fire. We also have clearance clash at times. So basically, if there's a pipe which is really close to a beam during a seismic activity, that pipe could actually clash with the beam, because of
yes,
which you
yes.
got clearance clashes as well. So yeah, it's just an automated process which we are trying to have of auto detecting clashes quite early in the design stages. So it's always good to familiarize yourself with clash detection, familiar just know how to use automated clash detections as well. Um, but apart from this, I really feel automation is still getting developed in the BIM side of things. You
Hmm.
still need to have that visual check by eyes, looking into the model, making sure that everything is nice, well coordinated onto your federated design model, onto the combined model,
Yeah.
as opposed to issues happening on site later. It's more of a visual check right now. So yeah, we are very keen on just seeing how automation gets developed more and more in the BIM side of things. Yeah, that's what I'm really looking
Uh,
forward to.
what are your comments on AI? Like now that again, AI
Ooh,
again, people are like obsessed over it. What are your comments? What are your opinions, or what do you think about it?
I the way I see it is, if AI is could identify few of these clashes
Yeah.
at a very early stage in the design process, as opposed to it happening, let's say, later down the line. Let's say like LOD, let's say 300 or 400, which is already onto a
Yeah.
very detailed level of design. If we can have these issues identified at a very early stage, um, that's something which I'm really conscious if AI could do, of trying to make sure if you can identify some of these issues quite early in the stage.
Mm.
um, One aspect is as well, if AI could find out something like safety in design. Now, when I say safety in design, that's quite a big terminology, because like, especially if you're having some structure or some design where you're working on heights, or there's a high chance of construction workers which could be working on a very significant height, and there could be a possibility that we just need to think about something like just making sure that he's safe on those particular heights. If you got
Hmm.
all these little things incorporated, and if AI could actually notify of safety and design aspects as well, that's something again I'm really
Yeah.
looking forward to, if AI could support in such sense for a
Fair.
project life cycle. Yeah.
So you've been there since the past 5 years. Any stories or incidents that you'd like to share with us of any of your notable projects? I mean, I'm sure you've had many.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, definitely a few experiences that I had come across. So that was with Auckland City Rail Link project, where I was the BIM coordinator over there. And then I'm working with Wellington Town Hall project, which is a restoration of and re-strengthening of an auditorium project in Wellington. And I'd worked with Fakamaru project, which is a project which is just getting delivered quite close to my house, and that this is with Neela Love. And I'm working for Waikato Hospital project, which is based in Hamilton. That's with Neela Love as well. And in this, I think every team is seeing the whole success story of making sure everything is 3D coordinated, BIM coordinated. If we've got everything nicely aligned with each other, different trades aligning with each other, and essentially once we've got the whole coordinated model given to the subcontractors and even to the construction team, we are able to basically manufacture as per that requirement of being exactly well coordinated, and because of which, yeah, the project can essentially see the light of the day. So yeah, I've definitely come across many success stories, but also people asking the question of, is BIM still necessarily that expensive? Yes, it is expensive, but you're actually getting something delivered well within the parameters of what the program was asking, or you could say you have got a well delivered project at the end
Yeah.
of the job.
Yes.
And many of these issues have already been tackled at the earliest part of the project. So yeah, yeah. So there, I've seen quite a few success stories over there.
So I think that's your story. That building success stories is it's what you do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess this was a really really nice input from your side, and I
Yep.
really hope some
Thank you.
person gets inspired, packs their bags, and comes to New Zealand to work with you. But yeah, I mean, we really hope BIM practice is adopted by so there are a lot of large scale projects that are happening nowadays as well in Mumbai as well, and in India
Yep.
as well, but not, as you said, a lot of mid level and low level projects are also not happening at that scale, though it's
Yep.
expensive. But still people are skeptical of adopting this in their practice.
It
So yeah, I
yes,
hope
for
they
sure.
get some inspiration.
For sure. And it's all about making sure you invest in the right tools, making sure you invest your skills, making sure you invest time very early in the project, making sure it's all nice, well coordinated, interdisciplinary coordinated between all different trades. So, you're trying to
Hmm.
make sure that it's all done properly, is what I'm trying to get to. Yep.
Great, Chinmay Gatu. Thank you for giving us your valuable time. And
Uh,
yeah, that's it.
Pleasure being here.
Yeah, thank you.